Before Pete, the South only rose for football, but that was before Maravich made basketball fashionable, before they began calling LSU Maravich University.
Pete would fill arenas all over the SEC, arenas that'd be half empty.
For the first time, there was a figure who filled basketball arenas from one end of the South to the other.
Pete's name was dynamite. I'll never will forget the Alabama game in 1970. That's Bear Bryant country. That's football country. And as we flew over Tuscaloosa, they had about 4 lines, about 400 to 500 yards long, waiting to get a ticket to see Pistol Pete play. Many places we went, the marquees at the hotels would say, "Welcome, Pistol Pete," in LSU. Everywhere we went on the road, they came to see the pistol. His gun was always loaded, and he was always firing.
Without the spectators, you don't have any athletics. And what I try to do is just give the spectators their $3 or $3.50 a ticket worth of enjoyment.
Pete and I took a trip down to Daytona Beach for a week in the summertime. It's a basketball stand like you see at a county fair. And this guy's barking at the crowd out there. Step right up, come in, win yourself a teddy bear. So as we approach, Pete says, "We're going to have some fun." Pete walks up and he says, "Man, what you got to do here?" And the guy says, "You make 2 in a row, you get a large bear." He looks over at me and said, "Bob, I believe I'm going to try this." I said, "All right, give it a shot, man." He hits 2 in a row, bam, bam. So he gets the big bear, hands it to me, reaches in his pocket, gives the guy another dollar. So I said, "I'm going to try it one more time." The guy said, "Okay." Well, this time there must be 30, 40 people around. 2 more in a row, bam, bam. Shoots 2 more, bam, bam. That's 6 in a row he's hitting that. He takes another bear down. The guy's got 2 big bears left. That's all he's got up there. The guy said, "That's it. You're not shooting anymore. You're not shooting anymore." Well, then this is when Pete puts on a show. Pete backs out into the crowd. "How about if I shoot from back here?" And the guy looked at him like he was crazy. He backs out in the crowd. He throws the ball up in the air about 4 or 5 times, like checking the wind, all that kind of stuff. Then he lets it go over top of the wooden structure, knocks the bottom out of it. The crowd goes crazy. Throw the ball back to him the second time. This time, when he catches the ball, he starts spinning it on his finger. He's bouncing it off his knee. He's bouncing it off his other knee. He's bouncing it off his head. He's dribbling it between his legs and all the stuff. And the guy's got 1 teddy bear up there. And the guy says, "You are not shooting again if you go in the ocean." He comes over, takes the bears, goes out in the crowd, gives them to the kids, and we walk off. And it was like the Lone Ranger. And then somebody went and told the guy to understand. He had just been had by Pistol Pete.
The media would just came out of the woodwork to see this guy, to talk and interview. Kids emulated him all over America. The socks.
We picked the socks up in our equipment room at NC State. These socks were like hunting socks, actually. You wore regular basketball socks and put these over them, and they came up pretty high on you, but they were very comfortable and very easy to get on, and they helped prevent blisters. And I remember once I wore them, I loved them. I wore them all the time. We didn't wear them in games because they looked bad.
He was just superstitious. He had a pair of socks, and he wouldn't let go of those things. After a game, you take everything off, you throw it in the middle of the floor. Student managers would pick it all up, put it in the bags, and take it to the laundry room. He never threw those socks in there. He took them home himself.
In his 3 varsity seasons, the boy with the floppy socks not only ruined reputations, he scored more than 50 points in a game 28 times, averaged more than 44 points a game, and broke every scoring record in LSU history. And he didn't stop there. By the time Pistol Pete was through shooting, he had sped past the great Oscar Robertson to become the most prolific scorer in college basketball history.
I think I'm very fortunate to break his record because I followed him ever since I was a young boy, and I always felt he was the greatest.
He was a performer, and he knew he was. He was on stage. He lived for the roar of the crowd. Some people have never heard it. He heard it every night.
Up next, Pete takes his show to the pros, but difficult times await his arrival.
There are many factors that we discussed at great length and in great depth to try to get where we wanted to be, getting the best possible deal we could for Pete.
We are most happy to announce that Pete Maravich will play professional basketball for the Atlanta Hawks.
They made us an offer we couldn't refuse, enough to make the Guinness World Book of Records back then.
Pete's contract with the Atlanta Hawks proved Press Maravich a profit. 5 years, $1.9 million. At nearly $400,000 a season, it was almost 10 times the league average. Not only that, as a white, flashy superstar, Madison Avenue came calling before Maravich even played one NBA game.
Now keep your eye on Pete's hair as he demonstrates some not-so-slick hair control.
Along comes this guy, Pete Maravich, and he's got this bushy mane of hair that's really reflective of the styles that were coming to be in America.
4 seconds to go. The Hawks are down by 1. Maravich brings his hair down court. His hair looks right. It fakes left. It breaks free. Amazing. Great control. Now his hair cuts cross court.
Ball control by Maravich.
When he handled a basketball, that hair just flowed.
That's just got to be the best hair in the league.
Maravich was a free spirit. Maravich was different. He had a quick smile, and it was natural, and he was a star being different. We negotiated a deal with Maravich that was a $100,000 deal, which was an exorbitant amount to pay an athlete.
You're using dry control, bye-bye talents. You can't see it, but you know it's there. You're using dry control, bye-bye talents. The supernatural, the natural hair.
Do you foresee any adjustment problems with your teammates and other players in pro basketball due to the financial size of your contract?
No, I don't think so, really. My thing was to grow up and play the game of basketball and not worry about what everybody else thought. I'm just on this earth for 40 or 50, 60 years out of 5 billion, so that's the way I look at it.
Pete might not have been concerned, but his Hawks teammates didn't see it that way. To them, Maravich hadn't yet earned his money or their respect.
He was one of the few white players on the team. That was a problem. He was the rich white kid.
Not just for Atlanta, but for the NBA, Pistol Pete was the great white hope. It's not so much what Pete did. It was the way management reacted to the players. They had rules for Pete, rules for the rest of the players, which becomes an irritant. They wouldn't pay Lenny Wilkins $60,000 to come to Atlanta. And then when Pete comes, all of a sudden nothing's a problem. They talk about everybody's salary but Pete's salary, and then when they do talk about it, they lie about it. I'm not stupid.
He was deeply troubled about what was going on with the team and what he could do to fix it. Sometimes he would bend over backwards to pick up a tab. Sometimes guys would resent that, you know, because they'd feel like he was trying to show off, throwing his money around. So then sometimes he wouldn't pick up a tab, and somebody'd say, well, look, this guy's got all this money, and he's a cheap son of a gun. So there were the money issues, and then there were the issues on the court with Pete's style of play. All he wanted to do was fly up and down the floor, throwing passes that those guys had never seen before, hitting them in the back of the head, throwing them out of bounds.
I sort of had it with him when we were on the fast break, and he, for some reason, decides to roll the ball. So when he rolled the ball down the floor, I just let it roll out of bounds. Coach goes crazy. Why didn't you pick the ball up? I said, why did he roll it? I mean, the fans went crazy, but that's not basketball. Maybe he should be playing with the Globetrotters.
This is the first season out from under Daddy's wing. Daddy had let him do anything he wanted to do. Daddy wasn't there, and now he was with the big boys. He wasn't the king anymore. It wasn't that he didn't have the game. It's that he didn't realize what the game was. He was a little bit overwhelmed by the pro game, which, of course, was startling to everybody, so he was criticized. Pete had never been criticized in his life. He was pampered. He was always a star. Why are you doing this to me? I said, because you stunk, Pete. I can't write in the paper tomorrow that you were great. I call him the Peachtree Pop Gun one time instead of Pistol Pete, and that didn't go over very well. He was under pretty intense scrutiny when he came into the league. And it wasn't just in Atlanta. I mean, it was all over the country.
In Philadelphia, they held up some sign that said, well, hot dogs only go for 10 cents in Philadelphia. How come you got $2 million?
For the first time in his life, Pete was struggling on a basketball court. It wasn't that he was playing that poorly. By his third season in the league, Maravich was averaging more than 25 points a game, and by his fourth, he was an all-star. But the team was losing, and the pressure of living up to his reputation, to his image as Pistol Pete, was catching up to him.
He would do a lot of things that a coach like myself I didn't like. That's what I would say, hey, Pistol, you got to hit the open man. You don't have to do everything. He felt the responsibilities on his shoulder. It's my job to see to it that we win this game. And I'll win it for us because I've done it many times in the past. He got kicked out of a game. And when we came in at halftime, he was sitting on the floor. He'd had a couple beers. So now we go out and play the second half. We get beat, come back in, and had a few more beers. He couldn't drink. He really couldn't. Give him a couple beers, and you better get him off the wall. Because of that, I had to suspend him for not representing the Hawks in the proper manner. After the suspension, we had 33 games to play. I started him all 33 games, but we had no relationship. He's through with me. Either he's going or I'm going.
In the off-season, Pete would be the one to go, ending his 4 turbulent seasons in Atlanta. When we come back, Pete makes a triumphant return to Louisiana, and tragedy strikes the Maravich family. Before the 1975 season, Pete was traded to the New Orleans Jazz, a first-year expansion team desperate to make some noise.
He had the goatee and the purse, had a pistol on the side of it, smoke coming out of it. He was the whole thing. No one seemed to even pay attention to anybody else. He was back on stage.
I really can't see any other place that compares with this town.
He was the first rock star I ever hung around with. He carried over to airports and hotel lobbies, and he was bigger than life, and that carried right on under the floor.
Pistol Pete. It echoed through the building. Here he is.
Here was Pete, back home in Louisiana, free to do what he pleased, running and gunning like the good old days. He should have been happy, but there was something wrong in the Crescent City.
There wasn't a lot of peace in his life at that time. There was a lot of problems at home. There were real problems there.
The most serious problem in Pete's life was the slipping emotional health of his mother, Helen. Sadly, it was not a new situation. For some time, Helen Maravich had led a troubled life, but now her erratic behavior was getting worse.
Helen was pretty much of an introvert. She didn't socialize and didn't get out and do a lot of things with a lot of other people. She cooked and took care of her family, and that was about it.
For much of her married life, it was clear that Helen's self-worth was tied up in the well-being of her family, but the pressure of being a basketball widow had finally grown too great to bear.
Helen Maravich felt isolated from this capsule of basketball that was created around Press and Pete.
The coaching, the planning, the recruiting. So in essence, Helen was home alone. And she got to be very, very lonely.
She withdrew and had an alcohol problem that she actually hid from Press, and then Pete was the one who said, look, she's hiding bottles of alcohol around here. And then her behavior became more and more bizarre.
I was talking to Pete and his dad, and the mother came upon them as we were talking. The mother scolded her husband and her son. She said, you're ignoring me. You don't pay any attention to me. I'm here, I'm by myself, and you guys go your own way. How about spending some time with me once in a while?
She would just keep saying, Joyce, I'm not the same person that you knew. When we lived back in Clemson, I really didn't realize how badly she had gotten.